back.
We're back, and I still love our song so much.
It is a very good song.
It's a great song, and it just gets me amped about what we are doing, John Butler.
And I'm a rocker at heart, but I actually really like that song for this podcast.
I know. I think that, and I know we should maybe we could switch stuff out with like a little Soundgarden theme or something like that. A little Alice in Chains in the midst of it all.
Yeah. Hey, well, I'm game for anything. I'm game for anything. I'm just making sure I got all my ducks in a row over here and making sure that I know we're gonna have a great episode today because, again, like last time, we always find the best people to come on with us.
I'm telling you what, we are blessed beyond belief, and this guest is amazing. She's got a huge story. She's amazing. She's been working with me since 2017 on different shoot projects, and we've got some big stuff to talk about today. So let us welcome Mrs. Susan Hoff as our guest today. Hey, beautiful Barbie girl.
Hi, how are you today, Sarah?
Oh, doing so good. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It was such a honor to be able to receive your offer to be on your podcast from you and John. I'm really excited to be a guest.
Thanks.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you. This is beautiful. So you're broadcasting from Fantasca, and I'm honored to say that I've been there. It's quite the location, and it's beautiful, and it's just nice that you're broadcasting from there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here in Napa Valley, California, at my home office in our vineyards. So and the weather's beautiful, which is great.
Good.
And John, you haven't been here yet, but you have to come from Canada to visit.
I think the only place in California I've been is LA, Venice Beach, in that area, basically.
And wherever the bodybuilders hang out, right?
Exactly. Back in the 90s, though. It's been a while.
Get John back to his roots.
I was going to say, I'm sitting here talking to two very well-known photographers who have been able to shoot with some incredible people. So, and people that I look up to in that field. So it's neat to be able to be here.
Thank you. That's kind of cool about this dynamic, right, John, is that you were so involved in the 90s in the magazine world specifically. Mm-hmm. And, I started my magazine in 2018, but I was involved in fitness modeling when you were involved in the magazines.
And we never did cross paths either.
We never crossed paths, which is crazy, but, totally normal, I would imagine, because back then the fitness model scene was mainly in Canada. There were so many fitness models in Canada at that time that I looked up to.
Exactly. Well, if it was Robert Kennedy models, a lot of them were from Canada. You're right. Yeah, but when you're looking at other ones like the Flex and Ironmans and Muscle Fitness, they were all in the California. That's who I competed against because I'm a Canadian living in Canada, and all these bodybuilders are living in Venice Beach, California, Muscle Beach. So all those photographers were getting all the good gigs over there because they have them all right there to their leisure. So
yeah, that was a big time for sure. But regardless, I'm so glad that we've connected and we're able to create this platform for people. So
definitely. So we can meet beautiful people like this.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling having Susan on the show. It's a blessing. So let's get started. Let's deep dive. Let's talk about this. How we got to know each other. Oh my gosh, amazing. I was doing an epic destination shoot, which was supposed to be
not where we ended up shooting
So this is when the big giant tornado thunderstorm hit Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And I was working back then with swimwear designer Amanda Frike of Amanda Louise Swimwear.
And she's always gotten some fabulous things, and I still have a few of her pieces that I love.
Oh, right. Yeah, she's got great pieces. And she and I had structured this entire shoot in the Vieques Islands of Puerto Rico. And it was going to be in 2017. It was going to be in the summertime. And we had the W Hotel in Vieques Island, Puerto Rico, had lined up with us. And they're like, yeah, you can use our hotel. This is the host hotel. This was a big, big deal, not just for a photo shoot, but to be linked up with such a huge international hotel brand. Because they also want to use the images for their marketing purposes.
Well, and the fact that we could shoot anywhere on the hotel resort property, and it was beautiful. And I was so excited about it because I met her through another competitor that I had worked with her name is Tammy, and she was a coach. I just really, she's a remarkable woman. And she always said, you have to shoot with Sarah someday, Susan. I don't know why you haven't yet. And I said, well, I don't know. When is she coming to another show? Because I would always book shoots in front, or actually one in front that was pretty basic before I actually competed. Because of course you look incredible and dry and fantastic. And then one or two afterward where you have a little bit more of a bikini body. You've had a chance to have a little bit of fat. Your muscles kind of all fill in. They look really nice. You're a little softer. And I was like, oh, well, I'm excited to shoot with her. And so when I finally have this opportunity, and it was funny because Sarah found out that I was interested and she was on it, like calling me, are you going to shoot me? And I was like, okay, but I'm kind of a picky girl. I can't just shoot with a group of other girls. I have to have my own time. I'm older. I have expectations. She's like, no, I'm all about it. I'm like, all right. So we get ready to go and we're so excited. And all of a sudden we start watching the weather channels coming in and Sarah's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't even know if there'll be a hotel there to shoot at when we're finished with this whole thing. I was really worried. And so Sarah, what you did was really like epic in and of itself, just to be able to pull off. It wasn't one location, but we shot at 2 for that weekend.
You know why? Because people wanted an international destination experience. They just did. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well, Mother Nature took over and basically wiped out that portion of Puerto Rico. It was very sad, for the people that were there. But I had about 3 to 4 weeks, maybe to reroute things to make this shoot turn out to be a real epic destination. So what we did was I brought everybody to Scottsdale. I said, look, we'll do the first half here, and then we'll do the second half in Malibu. So it was literally a 2-part epic destination photo shoot. And it all worked out for the best. And I remember not knowing Susan at all. And we're driving you had come to the location that I had rented in Scottsdale.
Not at all. So I fly from California into this destination because it wasn't affiliated with the show. So it was like just its own shoot.
Yeah.
And I get there and I'm staying at this incredible place that she had kind of rented. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And all of a sudden I start meeting other women that are there. It was kind of like a big slumber party in the evenings. Yeah. It was kind of crazy. And then I was like, okay, do I need to rent a car to get to the next place? Or do you want me to take a plane? I don't know how far this is. And she's like, no, you're going to get in my back seat with me and we're all going to drive. I go, I'm sorry. I have luggage. I don't know what you're talking about.
Been there, done that.
She's like, oh, no. This is how we do things. And I'm like, all right, well, let's go.
See, with me, it was the opposite. I had the model driving me around when I did, I think I showed you guys the ones of me with Almo Height in Arizona. Yeah. Or no, that was in Colorado. And I actually had to fly to Denver, stay in Denver for about 8 hours, get on a plane, fly from Denver to, take a bus, down to Cortez, Colorado, where the model picked me up and we drove about a half an hour to an hour to Durango, Colorado, where she lived at the time, and got to my hotel. We locked everything off. The next morning, she picked me up, drove me to the shoots that we were doing because I'm new there. I don't know anywhere. So she drove me around. Exactly. And then when we were done the next day, she picked me up at the thing and drove me back again. And then I drove back on the bus to Denver, stayed from 8 o'clock at night till 8 in the next morning when my flight left with my bags tucked all around me so that nobody would steal it, and my camera gear and everything, and got on my plane and flew back, I think through Pittsburgh, I think it was, and got back to Toronto that night. So, hey, you do what you got to do to get the shots.
Do what you got to do. And you got to, you've got to be able to think on your feet. Like what we were saying, you have to be able to, okay, how are we going to rework this plan? Because these people were expecting this, and I have to deliver the equivalent of that. Maybe not on an international level, but we did. Then the beaches at Malibu were amazing. Oh my gosh, the sunsets. And it was highly illegal for me to shoot there, to be honest with you. We were sneaking around.
jumped into it, man. I was like crawling in the sand, the waves are coming up, and there's people running around looking at what we're doing, and we're like, I don't care. We're gonna get the shot.
We're getting the shot. And if we gotta move and groove, we're gonna get on out of here.
Exactly.
You tell us we have to leave. We're busy right now. So
yeah.
And as cliche as it was, you could have taken her to maybe the Santa Monica Pier or something like that and got some cool shots there. That would have been cliche, but it would have looked awesome, I think.
That would have been good too. We could have definitely done that. But I think the big thing really here to note is when you're on a photo shoot, even the best laid plans don't always work. You just have to be open to something new. And I find that some of those are like the best shots. They just happen and they're like out of the blue and they're not what's planned. I mean, yes, the one that you plan is going to come out and be beautiful because you know the photographer is really good. But you just kind of have to just let it flow and just enjoy what you signed up for, which I think is always great. And Sarah and I, she'll tell you, we've shot many, many places around the United States, and every shoot is different. And I just kind of have to be open. I bring, she'll tell you, I bring like an incredible giant wardrobe. I'm always more than I ever need, but you never got to be prepared.
Nope.
And then she always has something that she's like, here, I brought this. I want you to put it on. And she kind of throws it at me. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And I do. And it turns out to be great. Yep. So it's, you just never know. So I think that's the big thing. I mean, when people, if you've, for people that have never been on a photo shoot, you just have to be open. You have to have faith and you just have to enjoy it. I mean, you can see it in the photos when someone enjoys it and you feel comfortable with the photographer. Boy, it makes all the difference in the world. Now it's interesting because John, when you were showing us some of your photos earlier, it was neat to see because you could tell that your models were very comfortable with you. And they were just kind of, they were almost draped over you. They were like, oh, okay, how about this one? And can I could do this? And whoever you were with, was taking the photos for you. But you could tell that they just had faith that you were going to catch that shot. And they just, were into it, which is great.
Well, my goal was always to make them feel as comfortable as possible because a lot of times we don't get models that are hired. Like when you do Playboy, things like that, you get models that are professional models sometimes. These were not professional models. These are just girls that go on stage, they compete. Now you got to get some beautiful pictures. They've never been in front of a camera before, and you got to ease them. And they're standing there in their bikini, basically, and you got to make them feel comfortable with this big camera in front of them with a stranger shooting them. So my goal was always to try and get them as comfortable as possible with me, so that when we go out there and shoot, it's more like two friends going out there and having a shoot as opposed to some stranger with them. And I think that's where Sarah comes in because her personality is very good at easing people, and she just goes and jokes and she's like one of the girls there. So it makes it easier for you to get in front of her and listen to what she has to say. Plus, you already know her work and how good she is, so that adds to it. So you add that with personality, you're going to get some amazing shots. So
that's exactly it. And but there's that chemistry. And, so I always tell people, it's like, if you're going to shoot with somebody, make sure you interview them, find out what they've done in the past, what you like about the work that they've done, what their expectations are for the photo shoot, where they may end up submitting photos, and make sure that you're okay with that. And then what you want to get out of the shoot. You're going to go there, you're making the time. It's important. You're, whatever whatever the expense could be. I mean, just even to travel to a shoot. And so just kind of plan for that, but then also expect that sometimes the unexpected will happen. And usually, you can make it be horrible, or you can just roll right into it and make it the best shot that happens.
All attitude. It's all attitude. It's how you perceive the entire process happening in your mind before you even get there. And it's all your attitude. And you just, like you said, Susan, you've got to have faith in the person that you're working with. John, plenty of people have had faith with you over the decades. And, you've got a landmark portfolio to show for it, and your stamp on the industry of fitness. I'm not going to call it the fitness industry because you were in the industry of fitness. You were in both, but the industry of fitness was where you were more present. And you made more of a landmark in that industry itself before it became the fitness industry, right?
So you helped carve what were the topics, who was going to be in the magazines. You were helping the Robert Kennedy, who was, had published these incredible magazines, help him figure out what were going to be these great articles where there's these featured pictures. And then of course, some of yours were featured, and some of them, sometimes they weren't. I mean, that's just kind of part of the job when you're a photographer. And it
No, and the
happens.
good thing was there was a lot of photographers out in that industry that they didn't look. We had a good community in the 90s when it came to the fitness industry. I was telling Sarah two times when I went down, I had once one of the bodybuilders let me stay at his house. He just handed me a key and said, "You're living here for the week." And then another one of the fitness models. Yeah, and one of the fitness models let me stay with her and her husband at their house and just said, "You're not having a hotel built." That was the kind of community we had. And a lot of the photographers there, they were a lot higher on the totem pole than I was, but they never looked down at me. I'd be at a show like the Arnold Classic in the pits shooting, and here you're looking at guys like Alex Ardante, or you're looking at Ralph DeHaan and Jim Mentler and all these guys that are their shots are all over the magazine, and they're just talking to you like an equal. They didn't look down at you. Jim Mentler, one time I was trying to get some advice. I phoned right up and said need some advice. He would just tell me right over the phone. Like, these were the kind, they didn't look at you as competition. There was enough out there for all of us to shoot. And I was gratitude for that, because it turned me to the photographer I am now and why I'm still doing it to this day. So it was a great community back then. So it wasn't just me, there was a lot of them. And then you get people like Carrie Lee Brown, who's helping with editing and that. And she was such a good friend to me. Sometimes I would send some pictures in and I'd say, "Okay, Carrie, look at those pictures, try and convince Bob to use them." Didn't always work, but she tried to get them in there if she could. So
Bob was really particular about what he wanted when he wanted it in an issue. And it showed. His magazines were really well followed. I remember buying them off the stand, the men's magazines and the women's magazines, because I loved, after a while, sometimes as a woman, you're buying the women's mags and you're seeing the same old exercises, but sometimes the guys' magazines are like, "Oh, that's an interesting lift. I might want to try that." And I loved that about it. And they were both different, and they were very focused on their audience, and that was great.
I think we should bring more now. Let's see a little bit more of Susan and what she's done.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
so do you want to bring some pictures in? Or, why don't you just go with the flow?
I was gonna say, I've got kind of an interesting bio. When you were talking, it was funny. You were talking about how people get on stage and they're in a bikini and it's the first time they've really done it. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? I've been taught to walk forward and then, go to the left and then turn and do your next quarter turn." Okay. For me, I always say this in my past life. So in my teens, all the way into my early 40s, I worked at a company called Best Buy, and I became their chief communications officer. I started out as the accounts payable clerk for the predecessor company, which was called Sound of Music. And it was 4 little stores in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I worked there throughout college. And I worked in the stores. I worked in number 7, which was Roseville. And that's a little suburb of St. Paul. And it was close to the university, so I could take the bus back and forth to work and sell. I was really one of the first women salespeople. And I loved it. But what I realized is that they didn't have a lot of ways to communicate with the other stores. Remember, this is way back in the late 80s, early 90s. There was no internet. So there was nobody to talk. It was like, "Oh, did you know that this person left because their wife had a baby and he'll be back, next week?" And so people knew each other, but they didn't know what was happening. So I actually started the company's first newsletter. And when I graduated from college, I was actually going to go work for an advertising agency. And the company came to me and said, "Hey, we'd really like you to continue working, and you'll be working for a gentleman named Tom Nelson. And we'd like you to work in communications." And I said, I graduated in advertising graphic design. I don't know what you're talking about. Communications, what's that? I'm not going to do the newsletter for the whole time. And they said, no, start with the newsletter. Well, the next thing I did the newsletter, and then I started doing public relations, and then I started doing employee communications. And then my boss passed away of a brain aneurysm. He was 52, and I'd only been literally at the corporate office in that particular role for 2 years. It was 1989. And I was just lost. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you have to hire somebody else. I'm like just starting this out, and I'm just learning what was soon to become what they call now investor relations, which is working with all the stock analysts." And the company's like, "Well, we're kind of close to, trying to make sure that the company works, and we don't have that kind of budget. So we are now going to give you community relations, which is actually consumer relations, which is, when you call and you have a problem with a product, you need some assistance, you call the consumer relations line. So I ended up with consumer relations. And since you work on communications, you know what, why don't you do the mailroom too? Because that's how communications gets to and from all the stores and anywhere else it's going. And I'm like, okay, this has nothing to do with writing and design and publishing, and okay. And so I went in and I, called a lot of people, joined a lot of organizations like NIRI, the National Investor Relations Institute of America, and the Public Relations Institute. And I took some time to learn from a lot of other people. And my big thing was I wanted to run as fast as I could, so I didn't get passed up because there were a lot of really bright people I was working with, and the company was growing by leaps and bounds. And so you just took the avenues you could take. And before I knew it, I was running all these relations departments. And later on, I kind of worked my way up. I was, an analyst, then I was a manager, and then I was a director, and then I was a senior director, then I was a vice president, then a senior vice president, then the chief communications officer. And then I brought in public affairs because, even though I was used to working with all the chambers of commerce, I was not a lobbyist, and we needed a lobbyist because we were growing from the Midwest all the way down to Texas, and then all the way to the East and West Coast. And Circuit City was starting on the East Coast, jumped to the West Coast, and then came into the center. And so it was like, the big thing was like, all right, we're going to be number one. How are we going to do it? And you'll find that out about me as we're talking. Super, super competitive. And we had this team, and it was interesting because we still have this kind of alumni team of Best Buy people. And we're all still really close for those of us that are still around. And because we were through the fire, you go there to really build a company. Best Buy was a startup before they even coined the term. It was this little company that became huge, and it is what it is today. And the communications department essentially looks like it did when I left it, except for investor relations. They put that over in finance, which was great. But that's how I became Susan Hoff instead of Susie Hoff, because I always went by Susie. So my really close friends call me Susie. And you'll hear my husband will call me that too. Because, investors didn't want to talk to Susie. The vice president of investor relations, is Susan there? Oh yes, Susan is here. So that's kind of how my moniker changed a little bit. But I was wearing suits, and the suits I used to wear were dress suits. I had a blazer, I had a collared shirt, I had a beautiful pair of pants or slacks or skirt, and some really great boots, or some, that was my idea of a suit. And so when I decided to actually compete, which was a whole nother story about how I got into that, the thought of actually going on stage, not talking, not presenting, not trying to sell a concept or explain why sales were what they were for the month, was really different to me, because they're like, here, put on a bikini and go turn around on the stage. And you're like, whoa. Oh, wow. Okay. And I got to tell you, I was really uncomfortable at first. I was like, what am I doing? And should I be doing this? And it was one of those things where I had to say, this is actually easy. I don't have to present. I don't have to worry that I'm saying something wrong. I just have to turn properly, stand on my 2 feet. And at that point, I could wear high heels on a basketball court and walk fine in them, because I wore them my whole life, at corporate America. So I was used to wearing high heels. So for me, that was no big deal. And I used to feel so bad for the ladies that would get up there and they were not used to wearing high heels, and they really struggled to walk on stage. And because I was the old lady on stage, I always felt like I needed to kind of help when I was backstage. But that's, I don't know, it's the mom instinct I have, whatever it is. But so for me, working with photographers that made me feel comfortable in my bikini and made me feel good, I loved that. And so I got a chance to work with quite a few photographers, but they made all the difference in the world. And you're on stage and you really can see them from stage, and you're looking, and you know where to look, because they'll tell you, I'm going to sit over here so you can look at me and know that you're going to get the right picture. So this was actually the last competition I just did. And I was in London, and it was a pro show with the WBFF, and I competed in fitness. I was the oldest woman on stage in my class. I compete in 35 plus classic fitness divas. And this was actually not a professional photo, as you can tell because of the lights, but this was really fun for me. This was back in 2017. And the London show was really fantastic. My daughter, who is now 30, she came out to see me compete. And she used to actually help me with my bikinis, because when she was little, she was a competition dancer. So I used to have to rhinestone all of her bikinis. And so it was really fun for her to, do that with my new hobby, which was
the roles were reversed.
That's right, they were. And so my husband came as well. And this was just a fantastic outfit that was created specifically for me for this particular show. And I loved it. It's this really, it's not very, even. It's got that big, beautiful boot on one side and a shoe on the other that matched. And I loved it. And I did very well. As a matter of fact, the designer said to me, she's like, I think Paul Dillett wants to get this put in his office because he just loved the costuming. So I was really, really lucky. Alex Davey was one of the women that made this costume for me. And I would still go to her team to have this kind of stuff done.
She was the leader of the pack there with all those WBFF costume designs. I still follow her to this day. She's absolutely amazing. Do you still have this outfit?
I do. I do. Yes. Are you kidding?
She's putting it in her brain right now for a shoot right now. I can see it.
So many of these that I have. Yeah. And some of them I did. Some of them I've either sold or I've loaned out to other people. But this one was made so specifically for me and my measurements. And she worked really meticulously with this. And, she's in London. So it was a ways. And I came in a little bit earlier. And it was neat because it was also the first competition as a pro that my trainer that I work with he's a master trainer, and he's what I call my strength coach. And he and I have worked together since I moved to California. And he was really instrumental in helping me stay strong and to work through other situations and ailments that I had. He'd never done a competition. I kind of dragged him through that whole thing. And I don't know that he still likes it. He gets real worried about me when I end up having to get really dry and diet down. He's just like, okay, we got to be careful with you, because I also have a condition called lupus. And so it gets to be a little bit sticky. And so he's always very good to make sure that I can train as hard as I can without hurting myself. So if I'm, running a little awry, he can help me with that. So I'm very fortunate. I work with a gentleman like him. His name is Donovan Almond. And since I met him, he had gotten married. He's now got 4 kids. Wow. His family is just so super cute. So we're like almost friends. I mean, we are friends. We're friends, and his wife is fantastic. So they're great people. This was one of my first competitions, or actually my second competition with the WBFF. And it was competing in bikini still. And actually, no, couldn't have been bikini. This must have been fitness. So it must have been it was my second fitness show. Sorry, this is an oldie. So this would have been 2012 or 13.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks.
This was Los Angeles. And I was working with Jen Jewell at the time. She was my stage coach. So, and this was actually her bikini that she had worn at one time. So I was really fortunate to be able to
Jen Jewell had an amazing physique also. She was kind of resembled Andrea Brazier.
Yes.
In that way. Yeah. I get it.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And then this was one of my bikini. This wasn't even a WBFF. This was before WBFF. And I was still competing in Fitness America and Fitness Universe. And this was one of those bikinis. So, and this was also done by a designer. I don't think she's still doing work in Canada. And I saw it and I was like, oh, this is so neat. And I wanted to have kind of those zebra stripes that kind of reminded me of Chatty Dunmore, who I know, and I've actually done photo shoots with. She's great. And she's a model, and she had won the Arnold. And then she was competing in WBFF, and she had this incredible black and white with bikini with these green eyes from like the zebra eyes. And I was like, oh my word, the bikini was awesome. So this was kind of my version of that with a little bit of flowers on it.
Beautiful.
And this was one of my, so this was when I was competing in bikini, and I was working with an incredible stagecoach trainer. Her name is Michelle McDonald, and I think the world of this woman to this day. I learned so much about nutrition, macros from her, and she's a little younger than I am, which has been great because I think she almost used me as kind of a litmus test for, I wonder what this would do with Susan, because I'm a little bit older than she is. And it was really fun to diet down. And so I used to have to take, obviously, my weekly photos, and I would do that for any coach just to make sure that, when I turn it in, I'm making the progress I'm making. And this was one of those photos that was just kind of a progress photo.
Look at the abs on it.
You can see my great washboard, which is
crazy, just cut up, shredded.
And then this was my first competition with Miss Bikini Universe. And this was down in Miami. And I was 45, and I was so excited because you had to have some kind of a theme. And so I thought what I would do is I would be a referee, but a cute one. And then I would do some cute photo or some great football, what is it? The signs or the calls that they make as a referee. The
referee signs.
My husband was helping me with those, which was kind of fun. And it was interesting. It was a 2-day competition. And I wasn't a member of a team. The gentleman who got me into this, he was a trainer that I worked with when I was in Minnesota. So, because I was still working at Best Buy, so I was back and forth between Best Buy, and then I was still living in California. So, one week I'd be in Minnesota working and at Best Buy, and then I would train at a gym in Minnesota. And then then the next week I would be in California training. And he was the one that found out that he's like, I just think you should compete. And I go, what? Competition is for younger girls. It's not for older girls. He said, no, you look so good and you've made so much progress that you really, really need to go try this. And so he put me with a trainer who understood the Mrs. Universe pageants or whatever. And I went down there, but I didn't have any other team members. And I found out that there was this team called the Kathy Savage team. And I didn't understand how important teams really were, but this is what you learn in your competition. So the first competition I went down there, and I was 45, 45 was the entry level for this particular division. And these women looked at me like, who are you? We haven't seen you before. I was like, oh, and I'm talking and I'm having a great time. So I placed first in the first day. And then the second day is when, kind of the finals are. And so it was, mine to lose. And unfortunately, 2 of Kathy Savage's fabulous, beautiful models, they came in first and second, and I placed third. But I placed third out of quite a few women. I think it was 18 on stage. And I thought, well, that was pretty good considering I'm not part of that team yet. So you can bet who called me after that was Kathy Savage. And so then I joined the Kathy Savage team. And then I got a chance to learn to compete with these girls later. And we actually enjoyed it. We would love to go to competitions after that together, and we would see each other. And I loved actually this part of competition was not just winning on stage, because that's obviously gratifying, right? But being able to have these like-minded ladies that you get a chance to spend time with and learn from and know from all over the United States and look forward to at least once or twice a year and compete with. And they're excited to help you. They're like, oh my gosh, you look so good in that little Red Riding Hood outfit. You got to wear something similar to that. And they're trying to help you pick your outfits. I was like, wow, okay. My husband wasn't going to do that. So that was kind of cool. And my coach was like, I don't care what you wear. The guy is like, just make sure it's sexy. I don't care. So it was cute. So I really love that. And I stayed with Kathy Savage until I felt like I was at a level of professionalism and knowledge that I could compete at the WBFF. And so I went to find a coach that I admired and that I thought could really help me do well on stage and be a better me and be healthy. And being healthy is how I got into the gym in the first place, is because when I found out I had lupus, I really needed to do something to try and keep my connective tissues supple and try and stay healthy. I mean, there were points at Best Buy where it was so debilitating. I'd have to take a hot shower before I went to work just to be able to kind of open up my hands and walk. And I developed bursitis in one hip. And, so I'm sitting at Mayo Clinic right next to this 90-year-old and this 79-year-old who are frightened because they have to go in and have this big shot of cortisone in their hip. And I'm like, they're like, what are you doing here? Who are you with? I'm like, I'm here because I need help. And they were like, what? Oh my gosh. Are you going first? I go, if you would like me to, I will go first and tell you how this got. It was one of those things where you don't imagine yourself being there and you don't understand the stress you're going through. But when you're going through a company that's growing like by leaps and bounds, and my mother had passed away at a very young age, and there was just a lot of stress. The lupus had kind of taken over, and I just always felt like it was completely stressed. But when I found out I was really sick and needed help, I went down and actually got it. And I can't say enough about the Mayo Clinic. They're good people. They have 3 different clinics around the United States, Jacksonville, Florida, Arizona, and in Minnesota, which is where they're originally based. And as an executive at Best Buy, I had to go down for executive physicals anyway, but I don't think they expected they'd find what they found. And so after that, I realized I had to do things. And so I started with yoga. Instead of having lunch, I'd have a shake and I would go do yoga every day. And that helped a lot. And then I started doing Pilates after that. And before I knew it, I was like, I'm kind of liking this weightlifting better and it's kind of looking good on me. So let's try it. And so then before I knew it, that's how I got into it. And so then when I moved to California, that became a very big part of my life. And I will tell people to this day, if you are going to be successful at something, you need to make time for yourself so you can help others and help yourself. And so I carve out a section of time on my calendar that's only for me, and I never move it, like ever. Mm-hmm. So people will go, hey, this meeting's moving. Can you change this? And I go, nope, doesn't move. This is on my calendar. They're like, yeah, but it says you've got a meeting. Is it important? I go, not for you to decide. That's for me. And my time is in the gym, and that is like sacred. And it's funny because my trainer knows it's absolutely sacred. And when I ask to move it, it's usually because I have to catch a plane. Otherwise, forget it. It's always going to be where it is, right? And he's good to me. He'll make his schedule change to change it for me as well. Right now, I am training specifically for a photo shoot that I'm going to be doing with Sarah in October. And I would really like to get down to being a little bit more shredded, have some more definition, since I am now 58. And I'm excited about the opportunity of being a cover model for some really prominent magazines. And so we'll see if, Sarah's able to shoot it to the point where I can actually classify and make it. But anyway, so I'm all about that. And so right now he's kind of kicking my butt. Like today was leg day, and I was like, oh my gosh, really? He just, it was like by the second set, he's like, all right, it's on. And I'm not going to take down the number of reps. Let's go. But the weight's going up. And Dwayne just kind of looked at me out of the corner of my eye, because I drag my husband into the same gym with me 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I think maybe dragging's not right, because I think he likes it now. But it's cute. We'll work together. We'll work out together. And sometimes he just stops and looks. And I have to stop and I go, are you okay? I'm like, because I'm not going to talk to you because you look like you're gawking.
Well, why don't we go to a commercial, and when we come back, why don't we get into some of the shots you've done with Sarah and get into more of all that kind of stuff?
Let's do it.
Because I think you segued it perfectly in there. So we'll go to a commercial right now, and then when we come back, we're going to get more deep into you and Sarah and everything you guys have done. How's that?
Okay.
Did you know that you can win your travel expenses paid for on the next Epic Destination shoot in South Florida? All you have to do is get your shoot booked no later than September 1st, 2023. On September 5th, I'll be going live from all my social channels announcing the winner of round-trip airfare, round-trip Uber transportation fare from the airport and back to the airport, and also 2 nights hotel at our wonderful host hotel in Hollywood, Florida. I'm so excited to see you there. So if you want more information, head to epicdestinationshoot.com for all the details.
I just wanna hold you. I just wanna look into your eyes and tell you
I love seeing those commercials. You guys look like you have so much fun.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It just is. And it just lights me up to see the replays of the experiences, even if it's 1 second of each people. And yeah, it's just beautiful. I love it.
Good job. So why don't we talk more about you two together?
Yeah, let's do it. Together.
Who wants to start?
Affair, if you will. It's like there's always one place that we're going to meet and shoot. Sometimes it's more often than that, but
I know it just depends on what I've got cooking.
Yeah, COVID kind of like threw us off a little bit because we couldn't go anywhere for a while. But when COVID was lifted, we were out.
Like we made up for lost time.
That's awesome.
And I think that first shoot that we made up for lost time was in Miami, right?
Was that the Bodyscape or the Epic Fit?
No, it was Epic Fit.
Yeah,
it was. You're right. I went out to Miami because I still had to wear a mask. Yep, to get out there at certain places, which was kind of not so good because you got all this makeup on underneath it and the mask was
not super good. But Susan and I have always been in touch. There's always been this synergy between us. Like, okay, what have you got going next? And Susan's always telling me, like, I want to plan another shoot. She always has a forethought about herself. She's always got a goal, and I'm here to be able to help her get it. And I have to tell you that Susan has inspired my career in so many ways. She really has. It's almost like she pushes me to find the next thing. And I think that where we are right now is a pretty cool space. I mean, I think that we have achieved something pretty monumental here, which shall be divulged later. Yeah, we're involved in some pretty cool stuff right now, and I'm excited. And that's what this next Miami, South Florida trip is all about.
I have to say, I'm really honored that I'm pushing you to where you need to go because you have grown so much as a photographer since I first met you. I mean, there were things that you were kind of playing with. And the one thing about Sarah is Sarah used to be a professional model as well with her fitness work. So she kind of knows what to look for behind the lens, and she can kind of give you those cues of what she's looking for. And sometimes as a model, you're there and you know what they always say, oh, if it feels weird, it looks great. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's good. But what if it feels weird and looks weird? You don't want that either. So Sarah has always been fun to work with in that respect because I think I've learned so much as a model. I've gotten better. And that's always for me. It's like, how can I be a better model, or how can I have a better photo shoot every time we go so I can have these incredible images, which is really lovely. I'm actually honored because I knew Sarah before Sarah knew her husband.
Yes, that's right.
And I remember when Sarah met her husband and she was so excited to tell me about Barry. And I was like, oh, tell me about Barry. And I remember, Sarah, you and I were shooting and I'm kind of laying on a billiards pool table. I had a glass of wine and in walks this guy with his dog and he's like, hi, Sarah. He's talking and he's looking at me like, what the hell's going on here? Sprawled on a pool table. I'm like, okay, well, hi, who are you? I get off the table.
Yeah, that was beautiful. We had just met. Barry and I had just met back then. And so, we were still in Scottsdale and he's like, okay, I guess my new girlfriend is going to have a bunch of models that she drives out to Malibu for part 2 of the Epic Destination shoot Puerto Rico that never happened. Right. And he had full trust in me. And at that point we had I think we had only been dating for like 2 months. And so, yeah, it's really cool that you got to meet him at the beginning because I told him, I'm like, you have to expect the unexpected when it comes to me. This is not going to be normal. Nothing about this is normal for what you, sir, think might be normal in your life. It's just going to be completely off the wall. But he loves it. And he since then, Dwayne has, befriended Barry, and you and I have obviously matured our friendship over the past 6 years.
Yes. Long time.
And been working together. So it's been a huge blessing. But I tell you, this epic fit shoot in Miami is definitely one of my favorites that we did. Those studio looks that we got of you with the natural sunlight coming through the big window and just like the organicness of your poses. It's just like you're sitting there just posing, just natural, right? And then the beach, we had a bit of an overcast day, but it was fine. It all worked out. The mood was there. The sun came out later on the day, and then we're there on South Beach, like right on Ocean Drive, and the Versace head to toe look. Like there was so much there. There's just always so much there. And you're ready. The thing is that you're ready. You show up and you're ready. Excuse me. And you're coachable. And it's a beautiful thing. This is in the backyard of Susan's backyard at Fantasca.
In our gardens.
Up in St. Helena, California. It's stunning.
It's my other gingham shirt that I own.
Yeah. This is in Carlsbad. Like we've literally been everywhere.
Yes, we have shot in many places. Tahoe, Carlsbad, Napa Valley, Scottsdale, Miami. What am I missing? Arizona.
Scottsdale.
Well, Scottsdale, but Phoenix, like multiple locations. Oh, Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, that's right.
There's probably something
so
else.
Many you can't remember.
No, seriously, after 6 years, again, it's not like one shoot a year. So
listen, I'm going to tell you that Susan gets the first alerts of what's happening with me. If I've got something big in the pipeline, Susan gets the first alert. She just does. It's because I know that she wants to be involved, because I know that Susan is her own goal setter. And so Susan can achieve certain milestones by setting these things up for herself in advance. And so we just do these things together as a project. Unfortunately, sometimes we wind up staying up until 3:30.
Oh my gosh. That was Texas. Oh, Texas. Yeah, Texas, we were up for a long time just chatting about, because it had been a while, and sadly it was pouring rain, and we had these great shots set up for outside, but they didn't work out. But you know what? I got some really good shoots from my website, which was really, really good.
That was in Newport, Pelican Hill.
That's right. And that was really fun too, because I was down there actually doing some work for my winery. And I stayed an extra day, and then we did some photo shoots, and she was able to meet me because it was easier for her to get there instead of Northern Cal. This is actually in a Gold's Gym in Texas, which was really fun. Yeah, which I enjoyed.
And that was back in Newport.
Yeah.
I loved your highlight right there. That is such a cool picture. I love that picture.
I do too. And that was Tahoe. That was really fun.
Tahoe shoot. I just need to time it properly. And I think I need like more of an inside line on Lake Tahoe itself and when we can shoot there. Do you remember? Oh my gosh. I had a shoot scheduled there the day before, and that person had to navigate through a bunch of middle school children that were on summer break. And
right.
That was about that. And then the next day they were gone for you. Thank God. Susan needs her own day. She just has to have her own day.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of hard. You're changing behind light reflectors and stuff like that. And you got 3 or 4 kids. That's not a good thing. So,
no.
Right.
And this was also Newport.
That
was Newport too.
Really fun times. And we've got so much more. I feel like, we've done all this also, but I also sometimes feel like we're just getting started.
Well, this was an image you put on a billboard.
In Times Square.
In Times Square. It was huge. I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah's like, guess what I've got? I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh no, I told you, it's not just a billboard. It's a big billboard.
That's a fantastic image.
Isn't that great? I wish we could make it bigger, but it's so crisp. That was Susan. Just at that moment, that was just Susan. Like, I'm in my workout gear. I'm hot. I'm sexy. I've got my fitness ball. My hair and makeup is done to perfection. I think that was Liliana that did your makeup and hair, was it not?
It was. And she really had this, this beautiful look where it wasn't really overdone. It really worked out well for the gym, where it was just glowing and pretty. And I really love that. I think that look is really fun.
And we had touched on this yesterday in our pre-interview, is shooting black on black and being able to divide the black from the background. So for me, you know, as soon as she hit that pose in the sled, I'm like, oh, we've got this. This is going to be beautiful.
No, it's stunning. I love it.
It was. And then just the lighting, and to kind of figure all of that out with the reflectors, and you worked that as well, which worked out really nicely. So
I'm always trying to think of new things, like how am I going to manipulate the lighting? What is it going to be, a lens that's going to change the difference in this format, right? Like, so on this side of things that people don't really know, and John, you can attest to this, is the mathematics that goes into all of the photography, from the camera, from the brain to the camera to the image. How are we going to create all of that, and the mathematics with the lighting and how the camera speaks to the lighting? So this is a lot of stuff that people just don't understand, and they're like, well, wait, I just want the shot. I just want it to look like this. All right, cool. Well, we can figure that out, but just
exactly,
you know, there's a few dynamics that come into play on the photographer's side that we've got to get into play, and it all works out.
I remember that image that we took that was kind of a bedroom, kind of dreamy style image, and it was darker in the back, and then you had brought in these big lights to try and light that up, and you and one of your other photographer friends who wanted to understand how he was going to do it too, so they came in and we're working through the whole thing, and I'm just like, do I need to fix my lipstick? Is everything okay? Like, we're doing math over here.
Exactly.
20 minutes at the
The
shot
technical side.
Me, do I have salad in my teeth? And we're like, no, trust me.
We're busy.
I bore my wife all the time with camera talk, so
it's about apertures and shutter speeds and f-stops over here and temperature balance.
God, I just laughed. It was really funny. It was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna wait. So we'll figure it out. And those images turned out beautiful. It's like,
those were good. And one of those wound up on a billboard in Las Vegas, and there's so much to show. And you know, this is just, we've done so much. We've got a whole library of work together. But like I said, I feel like it's just also just getting started, especially with this Miami trip coming up. And
yes,
you know, it's oozing.
And you can't do it without a support system, which I see right there is probably one of the best support systems you could have.
Yeah. And you know, it's really been neat because Sarah is right. I'm very particular about what I need. Oftentimes when I have a photo shoot, I'll sit down, oh, look at my family.
Aww.
There it is. And that's my granddaughter. Isn't she lovely? She just turned 1 in June.
Look at the blue eyes.
And then my daughter and my son is in the middle. And then obviously my husband, and then my son-in-law is on the right side. There, look at us. Oh my gosh.
What a great
on the podcast. And my husband is with my granddaughter and my daughter. They're making dinner together at her house. Yeah.
Look at the smile on his face. You can tell he's a happy guy.
Yeah, right now. So yes, and then that's obviously my son-in-law and daughter. My son-in-law right now, he's a very he's a wealth manager for Bank of New York, and so he's working in San Francisco right now. So my daughter is at home by herself tonight because he's got some meetings tomorrow. So my husband's like, "Oh, come down and make you dinner." So it's very
so sweet. Yeah, I love being around your family. It's true love. It's just true love. And when Barry and I were there to experience this, and my husband Barry, he's sitting back on the background and just kind of watching everything. His eyes were tearing up just because he understands how much love circulates abound in this family. It's beautiful. And you know, me too. Like, I got a little misty behind the camera, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm taking your family photos. It was a really special time, and that was a great way to wrap the shoot, actually, because that was the official shoot wrap.
Okay,
it was the official shoot wrap, and she had done some incredible, gritty photos of me in the gym, and it was starting to get dark out, and they're a black and white series, and I think those are going to be published in an upcoming magazine. So she didn't want to share those with you just yet.
Well, it's fine. It's up to you. Like, I'll talk about it. It's up to you what you reveal.
Well, so we did that image, and then I went back, and then I got changed, and then we took family photos, which was so much fun. And Sarah was she was so kind to be able to do it. Like you said, you were a wedding photographer at one point. You know, it takes a special photographer, and she made everybody feel really good about it. And my son is like, "Oh my God, we got to hurry up! The fire is going to burn my back." from the fireplace out there. I'm very fortunate. My son lives in San Francisco and he comes up to visit. It's only an hour and a half drive. A lot, very, very often. And we have a little condo in San Fran. So when we're down there visiting, we usually take him out to dinner or he'll meet us for breakfast or something. And I'm lucky I've just got a family that I kind of like to be around us, which is kind of nice. I must have done something right as a parent. I always, it's always your biggest fear as a parent. It's like, are your kids going to want to hang around after they get to be adults, or are they just like so done with it? Bye-bye. Yeah. And yet my daughter lives less than a mile away from us and she works with our business and she's also got her own business. She's an incredible winemaker. I'm going to here's my commercial. This is
I love it. Bottle.
Yes.
There we go. Can you see?
I have yet to try her wines. It's a beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, I'm so proud of this little girl. She's so fantastic. She's not a little girl anymore. Obviously, she's a mother and she's 30. But yes, she's made wine all over the world, and she graduated from UC Davis in it, just specifically because when we moved to California, she loved it. She wanted to be outside, and that's what she does. And she helps us with our winery, and our winery is Fantasca. And I'm going to show you. This is our bottle. So see, this is our Cabernet.
A lot more fancy than mine.
Well, this is our whole life. This is not, what you do with yours.
Purpose filled.
Yeah. And then here's our Chardonnay. This is just 2 of the wines we make, but I'm really proud of these bottles because this one's frosted. And then this one is our Chardonnay. And when it gets to the right temperature and you slide it in, the diamonds disappear. And then you know it's the right chill temperature.
Very cool.
I'm a little warm now because you didn't know that?
No.
Oh.
The diamonds disappear when it's the right temperature?
Yeah, but when that's right temperature, the diamonds disappear because it'll all be glossy.
Oh.
That's awesome.
I learned something with you.
Yeah, well, this is wine that I opened up yesterday, but since Sarah's drinking wine, maybe I should have a glass too. So.
I have a glass.
I am in the wine business, so
Yeah, I don't have my wine with me, so.
Oh, you don't? Well, I would share with you. Unfortunately,
I'll pretend that I'm drinking it. How's that?
Yet on podcasts. So cheers to both of you. Thank you so much for
cheers to you, my wonderful guest.
Exactly. While you're drinking your wine, I want you to think now, because we're getting to the end here now. We're almost at an hour. We're actually under an hour, which is good. But we want to know your wow factor. So we want to know what your words of wisdom that you can leave this episode with for all the viewers out there. Give us one little word of wisdom that you can think of, or words of wisdom.
One word of wisdom?
Well, it doesn't be one word, but yeah, words of wisdom. Give us something that you want to leave for all the viewers that are listening to, some words of wisdom that you want to leave them.
Maybe I'll share the words of wisdom that my mother shared with me that I know that many women don't take advantage of, and they don't take the time. So my mom used to tell me a bath before bedtime is worth 3 hours of sleep. Actually, a hot bath before bedtime is worth 3 hours of sleep. And she's right, because it's that one thing that just kind of calms you down, relaxes you, and you get to bed and you're ready for bed. And it's like none of the blue light, none of the aggravation, that just kind of all goes out the window. And it's interesting because it was also one of the first quotes that we used on our fortune corkies for our wines. Every vintage, we have 10 quotes that are selected. They're always different. So now we're at our 20th year and we'll have 20 years of quotes. And it's pretty exciting. I'm actually thinking about writing a book. I just need to know how to figure it out. I might have to call, is it Carrie Lee?
Yeah, Carrie Lee Brown. Yep.
Yeah, and kind of figure out how I'm going to do it. But I think that would be I'm going to just borrow that from my mother. But she always used to tell me, she's like, Susie, honey, you need to go take a bath and go to bed. You're probably right, because I'm calling her at, some late hour because my children did something, or I had some project I needed to do that I was behind on, or I had to write a speech for an executive the next morning, or whatever it was, because you're always doing something for everybody else, right? And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. I should do that. And, the mood it puts you in is just kind of nice. So that's my
word. Are you going to do that tonight? I think I will.
Actually, I think I might. I think it's actually a good idea.
John, you going to take a bath?
No, I won't be taking no bath. I'm a shower guy, but I do like the advice. Though.
Well, maybe you haven't really taken a real bath.
I have 2 daughters. My youngest likes to take baths, so she usually does the bath bombs and everything in there. So maybe she'll take your advice.
Oh, there you go. I love that.
That's beautiful. Exactly. Susan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So grateful for you and gracing us with your presence here on our podcast. Just grateful that you can be one of our first guests.
Oh, well, thank you. It was an honor to be your 4th model for your Bodyscape. So for the cover, that was really great. And I'm really looking forward to our shoot in a couple months. It's going to be so fantastic. We have to talk.
You guys get some behind the scenes.
Oh, we will. If you're there,
yeah, we might have
you never know. All really good. Thank you again, both of you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks very much.